Here are 10 times side characters carried The Simpsons. We'll start off this video with 22 short films about Springfield, perhaps the most widely known episode on this list, which features plenty of seemingly unrelated stories from all over Springfield that soon connect into one much larger story. The episode begins with Bart and Milhouse spitting into cars off a bridge and wondering about the lives of the other people around Springfield. Well, actually, it's Bart doing all the wondering.
Milhouse, huh? Oh, sorry, I saw a convertible.
The boys then head to the Quickie Mart, and we head over to Apu's story, where Sanjay is trying to convince Apu to come to his party.
Oh, I guarantee a wingding of titanic proportions. You will be there or kindly be square.
Apu agrees, but only for 5 minutes, and he means that literally. So Apu has to race as fast as he can through all of the usual party activities, like drinking and singing.
I am a freakazoid, come on and wind me up.
And also hooking up with some random girl he just met 15 seconds ago. After all that, Apu makes it back to the Quickie Mart with 1 minute to spare. Things shift over to Lisa as he's tossing one of Homer's beer cans into the recycling bin. And while doing this, Bart flies by and carelessly tries to toss his gum into the bin, only for it to hit Lisa instead. We probably all saw that one coming. When Lisa runs to Marge for help, Marge can't remember if it's peanut butter or mayo that you're supposed to use to get gum out of her hair. So she just smears both into Lisa's hair and sends her outside so the sun melts it into the gum. And because this isn't nearly bad enough already, Lisa's then attacked by a whole swarm of bees. As Lisa runs off screaming, we follow one bee's perspective up until it lands on Mr. Smithers' glasses, while he's riding a tandem bicycle with Mr. Burns, which of course means he's doing all the work. And, on top of not helping at all, Burns doesn't have any sympathy for Smithers' fear either.
I'm allergic to bee stings. They cause me to, die.
Burns, utterly refusing to pedal himself, tries to swat the bee away, but this just causes it to sting Smithers and he slumps over on the front of the bike. Burns still refuses to pedal and instead begins yelling weird old man nonsense words at Smithers to inspire him to keep pedaling the bike up until they both collapse outside of a hospital. As Smithers tries not to die in the parking lot, we follow Dr. Nick as he heads inside to face a medical malpractice committee.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Dr. Nick.
During the meeting, a nurse suddenly rushes into the room saying that a crazy man is demanding to see a quack out in the lobby. The fact that this crazy man is Grandpa doesn't feel that surprising. Nick manages to calm Abe down before he stabs anybody and says his symptoms point to bonus eruptus. You know, the disease that makes your skeleton jump out of your mouth.
I'll need a golf cart motor with a 1,000-volt capacitor. Stab!
Thanks to his brilliant treatment of shocking Abe in the mouth with exposed wiring every 5 seconds, the review board drops the charges on Dr. Nick. Man, this is just like watching House. With that taken care of, we jump over to Moe's, where Moe apparently had to send Barney's tab over to NASA to calculate how much he owed. And today, the results came in.
Your tab's $14 billion.
Well, all I got is $2,000.
Well, that's halfway there.
But right as Moe gets his money, Snake comes in and robs the place. And Moe ends up passing out inside his bulletproof safety room because there's no air in there. You gotta remember the air, they always forget that part. And while Moe is busy dying, I guess, we then see Principal Skinner's house as he's cooked lunch for himself and Superintendent Chalmers. But tragedy strikes when his roast gets burned.
But what if I were to purchase fast food and disguise it as my own cooking?
With that delightfully devilish plan in mind, Skinner races outside and grabs some Krusty Burgers for their lunch instead. And Superintendent Chalmers is clearly none the wiser.
Yes.
Yes, and you call them steamed hams despite the fact they are obviously grilled.
You know,
And even better than that is how Chalmers is convinced that it's just the Aurora Borealis in Skinner's kitchen and not, oh, I don't know, a readily spreading house fire.
Seymour, the house is on fire!
no, Mother, it's just the Northern Lights.
So, all in all, it was a successful luncheon indeed. Wonder how many of you watching knew that this was the steamed ham episode coming into it. While a fire engine races towards Skinner's house, we then see Homer walking down the street with Maggie and the family dog. And then we see Homer accidentally lock Maggie inside of a newspaper dispenser. And he doesn't have any other quarters either.
Oh, why did I have to stop at the railroad tracks?
He tries to get Maggie to squeeze out of the opening, but he only ends up ripping her clothes off through the little slot. Luckily, Homer has another idea on how to get Maggie back home.
Who's that little baby?
Would you believe that we're only halfway through this episode? I know we've already seen so much. Anyway, the story then briefly shifts to Bumblebee Man's home as he gets home and tries to relax after a long day of getting hurt by slapstick comedy, which obviously goes well.
Tiempo para relaxar en paz y quieto. ¡Ay, naranjas en la cabeza!
And right after being launched onto his chandelier and pulling half his house down, his wife divorces him on the spot. And then the rest of the house falls over on top of him. Poor guy just can't catch a break. And Snake can't catch a break either, as we see him accidentally run over Chief Wiggum, leading him to crash and Wiggum to chase him until they wind up in Herman's military antiques.
Looks like the spider got himself a couple of flies.
Hey, haven't I seen this in a movie before? Probably not. Anyway, while Wiggum and Snake are being held at gunpoint, we head back to the Simpson house as Ned wanders over and tries to help with Lisa's gum situation, which is only getting worse. His brilliant suggestion is to freeze the gum with an ice cube and then to smash it with a hammer.
I seem to have mashed more hair into it.
After that obviously fails, groundskeeper Willie appears to give his own suggestion, which then leads to more and more random people entering the scene, making Lisa's day even worse. We then cut to the scene with Wiggum, Snake, and Herman, which is interrupted by Milhouse's dad as he tries to find some place for Milhouse to use the bathroom.
Can my son use your bathroom?
You gotta say yes!
Okay, but be quick.
Kirk then realizes what exactly is happening here and tries his best not to get involved. But Herman threatens him with his gun and tells him to get in the corner. Luckily, Milhouse accidentally saves the day before things get even more violent.
Hey, Dad, can we get this, please? Oh my gosh.
As Chief Wiggum takes advantage of the situation and hops away while still tied to a chair, Lisa runs past and heads to a barber shop to get her hair situation taken care of by a professional. At first, this seems like a terrible mistake. But luckily for her, she actually ends up looking nice by the end of things, even looking like a real person, whatever that means. Unfortunately, she still feels bad when Nelson laughs at her. But this leads Nelson to trouble when he laughs at a really tall man inside a really small car who decides to chase Nelson down and teach him a lesson by getting everyone else to laugh at him for once.
Wave to the people. Blow them kisses.
To be honest, this is kind of psychotic, right? Not like he doesn't deserve it, though. Nelson then gets ketchup and mustard squirted onto his face, and he looks up to see Bart and Milhouse in the same place from the start of the episode. They agree that everyone in town has a funny story to tell, and that there just isn't enough time to tell them all. This point is made really clear as the episode fades out while poor Professor Frink is unable to share his own funny story. Poor guy. Anyway, we had to skip a few of the short stories here, but you get the gist of it. Now we're gonna move on to the episode This Little Wiggy, where Bart is forced to become playmates with Ralph Wiggum, and decides to take advantage of the fact that Ralph's dad is an incompetent cop. What could go wrong? Along with plenty of other kids from around town, the Simpson family heads to the newly opened Springfield Knowledgeum. Both Homer and Bart think this will be as boring as any other museum, but it turns out that it's actually full of fun and slightly dangerous, interactive exhibits.
Come on, Maggie. Let's try and find the enormous pendulum. Wait there!
Bart soon goofs off in a Mars exhibit by treating the entire thing like a skateboarding park, and he nearly crashes into Ralph. Then the bullies arrive to, what else? Bully Ralph by stuffing him into a giant ear exhibit. After she helps Chief Wiggum to get him out, Marge feels bad for Ralph, so she later decides to schedule a playdate between him and Bart. Ralph even brought a finger trap, so it's already off to a great start.
Whoa, get him off! Get him off!
Fighting only makes it tighter.
Obviously, even when Marge convinces Bart that it might make Ralph seem cooler if he hangs out with him, Bart is still against the idea. He tries to get through the day by tricking Ralph into playing hide and seek while Bart doesn't look for him, but Marge says that they should play outside instead, which again, Bart doesn't enjoy.
Slow down, Bart. My legs don't know how to be as long as yours.
To avoid being seen by anybody, Bart decides to go and play at Ralph's house instead, where Ralph shows him all of his cool stuff, like his swing set, or the rock where he saw a leprechaun.
He told me to burn things.
Bart takes advantage of being in Ralph's house and soon finds Chief Wiggum's closet full of police stuff that Ralph isn't allowed into. Wiggum suddenly returns home while they're looking around in there, so the boys hide. Wiggum thinks it's a criminal in his bedroom, so he acts accordingly.
Oh, God, my back!
Don't worry, he only hurts himself a little bit. But before Chief Wiggum can get upset over whatever Ralph was doing, he becomes ecstatic when he sees that he's made a friend. So he decides to hand over police gear for the two boys to play with, like any good dad would. The day only gets better for Bart, though, as Wiggum then leaves the police master key on his bed, a key that can open any lock in town. Bart can't pass up this opportunity, so he soon has a sleepover at Ralph's house, just so he can steal the skeleton key while Chief Wiggum is sleeping, and maybe have a little fun while he's at it.
Son of a...
The boys then sneak out to have a night of fun breaking into places using the skeleton key. Places like a massive toy store and a bakery full of cakes. They then run into the bullies again, but to avoid any trouble, Bart wins their favor by showing them the master key.
Let's use this thing to rob the school.
Let's go to the zoo and tease the dingo. Let's use it to key some cars.
All these ideas are lame, though. Instead, Bart suggests something much more wild, breaking into an old, abandoned prison. Again, I ask you, what could go wrong? Obviously, Ralph is scared of this idea, and if you ask me, that's an entirely correct position to have. But Bart convinces him to go along anyway, since he doesn't want to be embarrassed in front of the bullies.
It's just an abandoned prison. All the murderers are long dead.
But the bullies don't want to deal with this at all, so they convince Bart to leave the baby behind, and he takes the master key away from Ralph.
I thought we were friends.
Wait, I missed that. Get him to say it again.
However, Bart can only be peer pressured so far, and he tries to get the key back from the bullies, which doesn't go great.
I thought we were friends.
Yeah, well, I hope the irony's not lost on you, Simpson.
The bullies then throw the key through one of the prison's windows and wander off. Ralph, not wanting to leave his dad's key behind, bravely enters the prison after it, which, after you turn the lights on, isn't really that bad.
Wow, look at all these toilets. And just inches from your bed.
They find the key, but it gets snatched up by a rat. They chase it upstairs, and it leads them to a room with the old electric chair inside. They use the key to turn it on, and then fry a wedding topper they stole from the bakery earlier. But when an old guard shouts down the hall, the boys run away.
My, do I always shout first. Just gives them a chance to run away. Well, I'm an idiot.
Sometime later, the boys are playing at Bart's house when they turn the TV on and see that Mayor Quimby has reopened the abandoned prison. He then decides, for some incredibly idiotic reason, to demonstrate the purpose of the electric chair by strapping himself into it, the same electric chair that Ralph and Bart left on the night before.
Uh-oh. We didn't reset the safety switch.
He's gonna smell like hot dogs.
Ralph has the genius idea to ask Lisa for help, and so she has the idea to try and use a model rocket in Bart's room to send a message to the prison. Unfortunately, the rocket goes off course and ends up in Mr. Burns' office instead.
Smithies, there's a rocket in my pocket.
You don't have to tell me, sir.
Luckily, right as the mayor starts getting fried, Burns reads the note and shuts off the power to the prison, but only because he's outraged that the prison has been getting free power for the last 30 years. Still, Mayor Quimby is alive, and that's the important thing. And while Lisa is at first upset for not getting the credit, Bart convinces her to let Ralph have the win since it was his idea to ask for her help. So the episode comes to a close on a nice happy ending.
You've done grand, laddie. Now you know what you have to do. Burn the house down.
Well, a mostly happy ending anyway. Either way, up next is Homer's Barbershop Quartet, an episode about Homer looking back on the good old days of the mid-'80s when he and some friends became a musical sensation. And it was definitely nothing like the Beatles. While the Simpsons are attending the big Springfield swap meet, Bart and Lisa come across a record album that has Homer's face on it. When they ask him about it, Homer says he's surprised that Bart doesn't remember since it was only 8 years ago.
Dad, thanks to television, I can't remember what happened 8 minutes ago.
No, but that is a serious problem. Anyway, Homer reminisces back to the summer of 1985, when he was in a barbershop quartet with Chief Wiggum, Principal Skinner, and Apu, and they would all sing together at Moe's.
And the crowds went wild.
I don't want to know where Barney was keeping all that stuff. Homer explains that with rock and roll stagnating and Achy Breaky Heart being 7 years away, it was up to Barbershop to fill the void. So he and the group began doing shows around Springfield, gaining some surprising popularity in the process.
That's my son up there.
What, the balding fat ass?
Soon, a talent agent approaches Homer and says that he wants to represent his group, but they need to get rid of Wiggum first. He's too village people for this modern age of 1985. So, to take care of this problem, Homer just abandons Wiggum in the woods somewhere like a dog.
No! No! No!
The other three then hold tryouts for a replacement, but nobody really fits the group. A guy named Dr. Doolittle seems to be a good fit, but it turns out that's just Chief Wiggum in disguise.
This bird's gonna fly.
Don't you hate it when that happens? The men are about to give up completely, but one day at Moe's they hear a beautiful singing voice coming from the bathroom, which turns out to be Barney, and they waste no time in asking him to join their group.
Sure, why not? Now where's me toothpick?
With Barney in the group and the fans going crazy for him, the only thing left to do is settle on a name for their group.
We need a name that's witty at first, but that seems less funny each time you hear it.
So they decide on their new name, the B Sharps. We then briefly see the Simpson family returning home from the swap meet, where Marge is upset that nobody bought any of her stuff during the event. But hey, at least Homer made some money.
I sold a guy our spare tire.
No!
With the car going nowhere, Marge has to walk 12 miles to the nearest gas station, because for some reason they're in the middle of the desert. So in the meantime, Homer continues his story. The B Sharps needed to come up with a new hit song, something that was exciting, fresh, and screamed mid-1980s. It wasn't going well, up until Homer gets an idea for Marge's Baby on Board car sticker.
Baby on board, something, something, Burt Ward.
After recording their first #1 hit and hearing it play on the radio, Marge is proud of Homer and says that he's going to be famous. Homer then promises that no matter what, he won't let the fame stop him from being the same loving father he's always been.
Have you seen Bart?
I stuck him somewhere.
Yeah, right, Homer. Soon, the B Sharps began touring the nation, where they got everything they'd ever want. Fame, fortune, admiration. The only thing left was the approval of record company lowlifes. They soon get this after they win a Grammy, but this is when things slowly start to crumble for the music group. Actually, wait, first Homer meets George Harrison at the after party.
Wow, what a nice fella.
Then the downfall starts, because Homer begins missing his family while he's on the road all the time, and also because they started calling themselves bigger than Jesus. I mean, who'd be stupid enough to do that, right? With Homer gone all the time, Marge tried to compensate to help the kids, but that didn't work out either.
Hi, kids. I love you.
And to make matters worse, the B Sharps began floundering as well, thanks to Barney and his new girlfriend, a Japanese conceptual artist who keeps trying to insert her own ideas into the band.
Number 8?
Then, after a magazine put them in the Not section in their Hot or Not issue, the group goes their separate ways, with everyone going back to their usual roles.
I'll never forget my 5.5 weeks at the top.
But when Homer's done, Bart and Lisa start asking questions, like why haven't they ever heard about this until today? And since when could Homer write a song? But instead of answering those perfectly valid questions, Homer just sends the kids off to bed. But then Homer starts feeling nostalgic, so he calls up the old group to meet up again.
I can't remember the last time we were all together.
Last year on that stupid Dame Edna special.
And from the roof of Moe's, the group sings together one last time, attracting a crowd as the episode comes to a close.
It's been done.
Geez, George, why so negative? What did you ever do anyway? And with that, we'll move on to our next episode, Insane Clown Poppy. You can probably already guess the plot from the title alone, right? But just in case you can't, it's the one where Krusty learns that he's a dad. And it goes great! After Homer and Bart blow up a watermelon with a bunch of firecrackers, Marge tells them that they have some chores they need to do. So the boys go about this process by blowing up even more firecrackers. And when it comes to the final chore, getting a stuck VHS tape out of Lisa's TV, the two overdo it with the firecrackers. By a lot.
It's gonna take a lot of fireworks to clean this place up.
So, to make it up to Lisa, and also because it's apparently her birthday, the family heads out to the Springfield's Festival of Books, where they meet everyone from Stephen King to Christopher Walken. Guess they don't have anywhere better to be.
Good night, cow jumping over the moon.
Eventually, we see Krusty the Clown doing a signing for his book, which is only 20 pages long and was actually written by John Updike. Google them, kids. But things take a sudden turn for Krusty when a girl named Sophie walks up to him with shocking news that she's his daughter.
I think I just seltzered myself. Shut up, Updike!
Krusty is certain that Sophie is wrong about this, but I mean, come on, look at her. But Sophie is quick to remind him of who her mother was and where they met, who, apparently, was a soldier during the Gulf War.
Chestnut brown hair, kind of shy, 32 confirmed kills.
Sounds like the most romantic place on earth, if you ask me. Krusty was overseas to do a comedy show for the troops and was bombing like usual when a sudden desert sandstorm kicked up during his show. Krusty went to hide in a random tent, and that's when he met Sophie's mom. Inexplicably, the two of them near instantly start getting it on.
Whatever it was magic.
But problems arise when the two wake up late and Sophie's mother realizes she's late for her mission. A mission to assassinate Saddam Hussein. Because what else would? But since Saddam makes up half of Krusty's routine at this point, he chases her down and stops her from blowing Saddam up. So she strangles the clown half to death.
When I came to, she was gone, and the war had been over for 8 months.
Krusty then asks how Sophie found him, and she says that all her mom ever told her was that her dad was some pathetic clown.
So I typed pathetic clown into a search engine, and your name popped right up.
Sophie then says that she wants to spend some time with him. Krusty tries to push her away since he's not really fatherhood material, obviously. But when Sophie starts to cry, he begrudgingly agrees to take her on one trip to the beach. But even then, he's not really giving it his all.
You know, for a clown, you're not really a lot of fun.
Seeing how sad Sophie is, Krusty looks around at some of the other fathers on the beach for inspiration. And because this is still The Simpsons, he decides to hang out with Homer to get some fatherhood advice. And while Homer is only kind of helpful...
Because overthinking is, what were we talking about? Ooh, a clown!
Krusty still manages to get his act together, and he and Sophie end up having a fun day of activity at the beach. It ends with Sophie playing a song on her violin. Krusty then takes Sophie home and nearly agrees to stay over for a minute longer, but he changes his mind after seeing her mother's unique interior decorating style. So instead, Krusty goes out to play backroom poker with a handful of Springfield's lowlifes. And Homer. Krusty gets himself a near-perfect hand, and he refuses to fold when Fat Tony raises the pot by 2 G's. So he goes out to his car and finds Sophie's violin in the back seat. At first, he refuses this idea altogether.
Do it, do it, do it, do it.
But those cards are pretty convincing. However, this idea quickly turns into a disaster when Fat Tony reveals that he has a straight flush. Don't you just love gambling? Inevitably, Krusty goes to Sophie's apartment and tries to soften the blow by giving her a ukulele, the thinking man's violin. But that obviously doesn't help Sophie feel any better.
Mom was right. I was better off not knowing you.
Krusty then goes to find Homer, asking for help on how to win back Sophie's love, which leads Homer to come up with another great idea.
All right, why don't we just break into Fat Tony's compound and get it back?
Because no risk is too great when you're helping a casual acquaintance, not even taking on the mob. The two men soon arrive to Tony's mansion, where a bunch of mob families from across the country seem to be attending some kind of party, meaning Fat Tony will be distracted with his hosting duties. Unfortunately for them, that doesn't make things any easier once they get inside the mansion.
Don't!
With no time to spare, the two of them just grab every suitcase so they can sort them out later, and it seems like they're in the clear, until they walk right into the middle of the meeting like idiots and drop all the cases. Geez, who leaves a bunch of unattended guns fully loaded and with the safeties off? Luckily, Krusty finds the case with the violin in it, and he and Homer manage to sneak away as the mobsters start shooting at each other. Again, like idiots. Krusty then wakes up Sophie by playing the violin outside her window, and she rushes down to hug and forgive her father. The fact that the case is lined with unmarked bills doesn't hurt either.
Small bills, unmarked, and non-sequential.
Holy simoleons!
All it really takes to win back a daughter's love is $5 grand. Who would have thought? So, all in all, everything works out great for everybody, except Homer, who's still getting chased by the mob.
Sorry you're such jerks!
Don't worry, he'll be fine, probably. Coming up at the halfway point of this video is the episode A Millhouse Divided, which starts off innocently enough before hitting you with the surprise right hook of a divorce. But don't worry, Homer will still find a way to make it about himself, for better and for worse. While the Simpson family is eating dinner in front of the TV, Marge gets annoyed at how lazy the rest of the family is acting, such as dropping food all over the place, and Bart hanging out in his underwear. So she tries to get the family to join her in the dining room to have an actual conversation with one another. You can guess how that goes.
Hello, Marge. How's the family? I don't want to talk about it. Mind your own business.
Her first mistake was forgetting who her family was. Later that night, Marge decides that she wants to host a fancy dinner party that lives up to her fantasy of what married life should be like. So the family later goes to the store to pick up some cooking supplies for the big night.
Hey, ladies, check this out. Non-stick coating.
Afterwards, Marge goes through hours of cooking and preparing to make sure that everything and everyone is just perfect before the guests arrive. Everyone besides Homer.
Are you ready?
Just gotta put my shoes on.
Say what you want, but the man has his priorities in order. Luckily, Homer gets his clothes on in time for the guests to arrive, and for the most part, everyone at the party has a good time during dinner, except for Millhouse's parents, since they're too busy doing that super cool thing of bickering in public and making everyone else uncomfortable.
Yeah, Marge. I know I haven't eaten that well since I was in the army. or that noisily.
It's kind of weird how you know it's just a cartoon, but it can still make you feel secondhand embarrassment, right? Things only get worse for everyone when it comes time for a game of Pictionary. You've at least heard of Pictionary, right, kids? A dispute over who can make the better drawing quickly spirals into a full-on argument between the two, ultimately resulting in Luann telling Kirk that she wants a divorce, and Kirk tells her he agrees, using the Pictionary board.
It's a door! Use it!
That's a door?
Later, after everyone goes home, feeling as incredibly uncomfortable as you'd expect, Marge blames herself for causing Luann and Kirk to split up.
The Van Howens split up at our party.
Marge, please. That was 20 minutes ago.
And even though Homer tells her to just blame herself once and move on, Marge still goes to try and help out Luann during the divorce process. But it turns out that Luann is handling it fine, if you call burning all of Kirk's stuff fine, anyway. Kirk is doing fine too, if you ignore how sad it is.
I sleep in a racing car. Do you?
I sleep in a big bed with my wife.
And if you thought that was sad enough, it actually gets worse once Kirk learns that he's being fired from the Cracker Factory. Divorce is bad for a family business, you know.
So that's it after 20 years. So long, good luck?
I don't recall saying good luck.
On the bright side, Milhouse is handling things well since his mom will let him do whatever he wants to make sure he's happy. And Luann has already moved on to dating a ripped stuntman named Chase. And since he's a stuntman, he lets Bart break a chair over him, leading to one of my favorite scenes in the whole series. Never gets old. Homer goes out to Moe's and bumps into Kirk and his new girlfriend, Starla, who works at a radio station. Kirk is sure that she's going to help him move on and launch a new singing career, right up until she steals his car and tosses his demo tape onto the street, that is.
Can I borrow a feeling?
Dejectedly, Kirk realizes the reason for his divorce is because he took Luann for granted and didn't appreciate her enough.
One day your wife is making you your favorite meal. The next day you're thawing a hot dog in a gas station sink.
Naturally, Homer makes this about himself and says that something like this would never happen to him and Marge. But to Homer's horror, he finds a note on the fridge from Marge. A note that says, since he didn't join her on their night out, she instead left some hot dogs thawing in the sink for him. For the record, that is one of the warning signs. Look out for that one, all you married people out there. This makes Homer worried that Marge might want to divorce him after everything that's happened lately. So he tries to make up for any neglect from their last 10 years of marriage by doing nice things for her, like foolishly taking the place of her barber as a surprise, which obviously Marge doesn't enjoy.
Ooh, you're feisty. I'm gonna give you a Madonna cut.
But Marge says that she doesn't need Homer crowding her 24 hours a day and tells him to leave. Homer realizes that he's only making things worse and decides that Marge deserves a fresh start. So, in a shocking turn of events, Homer heads to the courthouse and files for divorce.
These things happen, $8.
Sometime later, Marge returns home with the kids, and she hears Homer say that they need to talk from the other room. Marge nervously enters and flips the light switch and is met with a surprise. Just not the one we thought it'd be.
Marge, will you marry me?
Why? Am I pregnant?
It turns out, after Homer remembered how lonely Marge was during their actual wedding, Homer gathered all of their friends together so that they can have a second wedding to make it up to Marge, which is actually kind of beautiful in my opinion. So Marge and Homer get married again, since Homer really did file for divorce earlier, and Marge gets to live out her perfect wedding. Homer even got a hip rock and roll band to play for them.
Okay, everybody, who likes the Doobie Brothers? 'Cause we got one of them!
Of course, this episode isn't just about Marge, is it? That's why Kirk gets the band to play for him as he sings the Can I Borrow a Feeling song of his before asking Luann to marry him again. And she obviously says no, and that hot boyfriend of hers forces Kirk to leave the house.
I'll be back. Probably.
And then the episode just ends. Who would have thought it would take more than a love song to win a woman back? With that done, we'll move on to the episode Days of Wine and Doses, where Barney realizes how much of a drunken loser he is and decides to sober up. And I'm sure that choice will stick for the long run. Right? While all the guys are hanging out at Moe's like usual, Barney is upset over the fact that nobody remembered his birthday last week. But the thing is, they did remember his birthday. It's just that Barney can't remember the party himself.
Why would I not remember my own birthday?
Can't imagine why this guy has memory problems. Moe pulls out a videotape showing Barney's birthday party over at Homer's house, which captures many embarrassing moments of Barney while he's drunk, like him dressing up as Marge, for example.
Marge, you're making a complete fool of your... Oh, it's just Barney.
After watching the footage, Moe then gives Barney helicopter flying lessons as a gag birthday gift, since they can't imagine a tanked-up loser like him actually doing anything like that. Real nice friends you got there, Barney. Realizing that his friends see him as nothing but a laughingstock, Barney sits up and declares that he's going to quit drinking and get sober.
No, I mean it!
Again, real nice friends you got. Later, Barney throws out all of his booze back at his apartment and prepares to set out into the world as a clean and sober man. And then he hops on a fireman's pole leading directly to Moe's for another drink. Luckily for him, Homer decides to actually be helpful by taking Barney out to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting at the church.
Well, your recovery begins today, and we promise you all the sugar cookies and secondhand smoke you can handle.
After taking these first few steps on his road to recovery, Barney soon commits to his promise and signs up for helicopter lessons. And it goes great, for the most part.
Yes, that's great. Now let's just pull ourselves out of this tailspin here.
Meanwhile, with Barney no longer drinking, Moe and the guys try to get Homer to be the new Barney by sitting him next to the beer tap, and by forcing him to dance, because I guess that's funny.
You danced for hours just because they told you to?
If I didn't, I'd lose their respect.
Barney then appears in front of the Simpson house while flying his helicopter, which is a totally normal and responsible thing pilots do, and picks up Homer so they can go flying over Springfield. Homer talks about everything Barney missed out on at Moe's during the flight, but Barney says that he doesn't want to do that stuff anymore. Naturally, Homer takes offense and thinks that Barney is acting like he's better than him.
Take me home. Oh, don't be that way, Homer. I'll scream. Okay.
Now Homer is upset with Barney, which makes things between the two of them awkward. He could just listen to Marge and try to work things out, but it seems they'd both rather just leave things awkward and walk away from each other instead of actually working things out.
Hey, you did not pay for that beer.
Avoiding the problem entirely. Hey, that's my specialty. Meanwhile, Bart and Lisa have been trying to get the perfect picture for the new cover of a local phone book, and this quest has taken them to the top of Mount Springfield. But they're using a really old camera that ejects a hot flashbulb every time they take a picture.
Heads up! Ow! Bart, that's hot. I said heads up.
Unfortunately for the both of them, this flashbulb causes a forest fire to break out on Mount Springfield. Before long, while Barney is trying to make amends at Moe's as part of his AA program, both he and Homer see Lisa and Bart in the middle of the fire on the news. And since there's no fire trucks available, thanks to a new Burt Reynolds movie apparently, Homer begs Barney to help save his kids using his new piloting skills.
Barney, the call is from heroism. Will you accept the charges?
Despite his nerves, Barney tries to fly to the mountaintop, but he accidentally ends up crash landing on a nearby bridge, which in turn causes a truck full of beer to skid and send a six-pack next to the helicopter. Barney picks up the beer to calm his nerves, but Homer needs Barney sober if he wants to save his kids. So, Homer bravely drinks all 6 beer cans at once, and immediately becomes completely hammered.
You took 6 silver bullets for me! Stay away from my wife!
Inspired by Homer's bravery, if you want to call it that, Barney bravely flies the helicopter to the top of the burning mountain. There, with nowhere else to go, Bart and Lisa climb up a tree to try and escape the fire. And that's when they see Homer and Barney up above.
Ow! Dad!
Hey, kid!
Barney tries to pull them up with a rope ladder, but then a full-grown bear suddenly appears and tries to climb it instead, prompting Homer to cut the rope. Don't worry, the bear's fine. Now, without any other option, Homer tries to rescue the kids himself, which goes great, thanks to all the booze.
All right, I'm coming!
Actually, it does work out pretty well, because Homer is able to save Bart and Lisa while hanging from the helicopter before the fire engulfs them.
You did it, Dad!
You can't prove I did it!
So in the end, nobody died, which is always good. For Bart and Lisa, their picture technically gets on the phone book cover. It's just not the picture they were hoping for.
Isn't it adorable?
Yeah, at least they won a free bike. Elsewhere, Homer meets up with Barney in the park, and the two go back to being friends again. As the two of them share a coffee, Barney says that he's glad he's finally done with alcohol for good. But unfortunately for him, he got all that coffee from Moe.
Nobody gets away from Moe. Nobody.
You know, that's actually a pretty dark joke to throw in right at the end. Oh well, at least Barney tried to quit, right? That's gotta count for something. Up next, we've got another Krusty episode for you with Krusty Gets Canceled. That's canceled with a K, by the way. Where Krusty's show gets canceled after a new show becomes more popular than him. Bet you thought it would be about the modern version of being canceled, didn't you? Homer and Bart are watching horrible things happening to people on TV like usual, when out of nowhere, a strange new commercial plays. A commercial that should come with a seizure warning at that.
Gavel!
Gavel! Did you see that?
After weeks of mysterious advertisements for whatever Gabbo actually is, the truth is finally revealed when Gabbo makes his big debut and everyone learns that he is a puppet. But not only that, he's a puppet with a brand new show that will be on at the same time as the Krusty the Clown show. And it seems like this cute little character has everything he needs to take America by storm.
All he needs is a hook.
I'm a bad widow boy.
Ay, caramba!
Krusty himself isn't worried by the news, but when he learns that his ratings have been doing bad lately, he tries to even the score by doing some ventriloquism of his own.
I don't know. Why is a...
Guess it's not for everybody. Krusty tries plenty of other things to get his ratings back, like bribing the audience and playing some weird Eastern European cat and mouse cartoons after Itchy and Scratchy got taken by Gabbo.
What the hell was that?
Unfortunately, nothing works out for Krusty and he ends up getting canceled. And since he's an idiot, he doesn't have any money saved up either, so things are only getting worse. And then things just get sad when Gabbo does a crank call on Krusty, pretending to represent a Japanese camera company offering him $2 million to be in a commercial.
Whoa! Me Reiki very much! Oh, I hope I didn't offend you.
Talk about classy behavior, yeesh. But things aren't going to remain perfect for Gabbo either, because Bart decides that someone should ruin his career the same way he did Krusty, even though he's just, a puppet. So Bart heads to Gabbo's studio and uses a TV camera to send out a live broadcast of Gabbo saying some nasty stuff while he thinks he's alone.
All the kids in Springfield are SOBs.
Unfortunately for Bart, this controversy doesn't seem to hurt Gabbo that much, and it's mostly Kent Brockman's fault for that.
I ought to hold those SOBs. What the?
Sometime later, Bart and Lisa then spot Krusty begging on the side of the road, so they help take him back to his apartment. While there, they spot a picture of Krusty alongside Luke Perry, and Krusty reveals that he's Luke's half-brother. You know, that Luke Perry?
He's a big TV star.
Yeah, on Fox.
There's a bunch of other photos of Krusty alongside other big Hollywood stars, at least by early 90s standards anyway. So Bart and Lisa come up with a plan for Krusty to host a big TV special with all of his Hollywood friends to help get his career back up and running. Their first big star from Krusty's address book, none other than Bette Midler, who they find cleaning up America's highways and chasing down the people who litter them with trash. After Bette agrees to appear on the special, their next stop is to find Hugh Hefner, who apparently runs an alternate energy research center out of Shelbyville.
Fascinating.
You kids these days still know about Hugh Hefner, right? I mean, you probably shouldn't, but still. Then, after conveniently running into the Red Hot Chili Peppers and getting them on board, Lisa and Bart head back to Krusty's, only to discover that he's gotten really, really fat, because he got those diet milkshakes mixed up with regular milkshakes. Fortunately for him, both Marge and Homer are nice enough to help him get back into shape, although I'm not really sure what's in it for them.
Pork prices rose in early trading today.
And just like that, Krusty gets back to his usual level of fatness. Man, I wish it were that easy for me. Eventually, the big night arrives and the Krusty Comeback Special gets underway with Krusty performing a rendition of Send In the Clowns. And to his surprise, even Sideshow Mel returns for the big event.
I love you, Krusty.
Quiet.
Appreciation is overrated anyway, right, Mel? And overall, the show goes great. It's got everything anyone could want. From Luke Perry being fired out of a cannon and accidentally landing in an exploding building, to Johnny Carson lifting an entire 1987 Buick Skylark over his head. That's not a joke, by the way. Johnny Carson really can do that. Eventually, the show comes to a close with Krusty and Bette Midler singing a beautiful duet. And while he won't win an Emmy for it, since the Academy hates him, it's still an overwhelming success. So everyone heads back to Moe's to celebrate after the show.
What's up, Mo?
And the episode comes to a close, with Krusty thanking Bart and Lisa for all their help, and Bart raising a toast to Krusty, the greatest entertainer in the world. Well, greatest right after Johnny Carson, anyway. He is just one tough act to follow, isn't he? But we'll do our best to follow it up with Grade School Confidential, the episode where Principal Skinner and Mrs. Krabappel get romantically involved, and Bart blackmails him over this, just when you thought school was bad enough. It's Martin's birthday, so a bunch of kids from school come over to his house to have a party, and it has everything you'd want out of a kid's party. Bouncy houses, horse rides, math-based magic shows.
Oh, I'm not the kind of magician who does tricks. I'm a math-magician.
Since Martin is a big nerd, he also invited Mrs. Krabappel and Principal Skinner to the party, and while they try to have a good time, they quickly become bored with everything around them.
Is this how you imagined your life, Edna?
Well, yes. but then I was a very depressed child.
I guess bouncy castles just don't hit the same once you're over 30. But like always, Skinner's mom butts in and threatens to make Seymour's day worse. So both he and Edna hide it out inside one of those little playhouses. And at the same time, disaster strikes when Milhouse is playing Pin the Tail on the donkey.
Where's the bathroom?
So, because Martin's parents are a couple of weirdos who serve oysters at a kid's birthday party, all the kids get food poisoning and have to be carted away in ambulances. The only kid who didn't eat them was Bart, and also Lisa.
Hey, why'd you eat them? I thought you were a vegetarian. I didn't. I just wanted to leave.
Crabapple and Skinner didn't eat any of the tainted oysters either, but that's because they were too busy having fun over in Martin's playhouse. And unfortunately for them, this doesn't go unnoticed. Naturally, Bart tries to tell everyone about what he saw later at school, so Skinner and Crabapple try to talk to Bart to make sure he doesn't tell anyone about their relationship.
Bart, if life has taught me one lesson repeatedly, it's to know when I'm beaten. Let's talk deal.
So, to buy Bart's silence, they agree to take Bart's hefty permanent record file folder and swap out Bart's name with Milhouse's.
This is a great day for forbidden love.
Poor kid probably wasn't going to have a future anyway. But this whole thing quickly backfires for Bart, as Skinner and Crabapple keep using him to keep their fling a secret. This includes things like Skinner dragging Bart to the movies in the middle of the night to make Superintendent Chalmers think they're just on a field trip.
You think they actually filmed this in Atlanta?
I don't know. I don't think it's important.
But after being embarrassed in front of the whole class during one of their secret messages, Bart finally has enough of all this. So he gets not only the entire class, but the entire school to follow him, as he exposes the truth by revealing Skinner and Crabapple making out in the janitor's closet.
School dismissed.
In no time at all, the kids go and tell their parents about this incident, which leads to Superintendent Chalmers confronting Principal Skinner and giving him a choice, to end his relationship or to get fired.
I'm sorry, but I can't give up the woman I love.
Who says chivalry is dead? Unfortunately, Chalmers is left with no choice but to fire both Skinner and Crabapple. Strangely enough, though, Bart actually feels a bit guilty over getting them fired. So he decides to inspire Skinner to ignore the orders given to him for the first time in his life.
I'm going to do what Bart should have told me to do a long time ago.
So with Bart's help, Skinner and Crabapple barricade themselves inside Springfield Elementary and cause a huge scene, gathering plenty of attention from people around town.
Skinner, get off of my school.
No, you get off of my school.
The police try everything they can to get them to leave school, from shining floodlights through the windows to blasting them with a sound truck. But all they end up doing is creating a romantic scene for Skinner and Edna to dance to, which, weird as all this is actually kind of sweet. You know, for a cartoon about funny yellow people.
My heart grew tipsy.
Eventually, after Chalmers says he can't abuse his public servant position to give them their jobs back, Skinner decides to speak directly to the townspeople to try and win over their approval. But apparently, everyone in town has a problem with them because they all think that they had sex in the janitor's closet. This just goes to show you random children are not reliable narrators.
I did not have relations in that closet, and the fact is, I haven't...
So, to finally clear their names, Skinner has to admit the truth to the entire town.
I am a virgin.
I bet you weren't expecting the main conflict of this story to be resolved by a 44-year-old man's virginity, were you? And since this is apparently something too embarrassing to lie about in the eyes of the entire town, the entire crowd departs and Chalmers even agrees to give the two their jobs back. With this entire incident done with, Bart is about to leave when Skinner and Crabapple stop to give him their thanks. And then they give him some shocking news.
Well, actually, Seymour and I have decided to break up.
Huh?
Turns out they don't want to try and build a private relationship in the public eye, with everyone in town watching their every move. So then Bart leaves, weirdly disappointed that things couldn't work out for them. Or at least that's what they want him to think.
That's why I love elementary school, Edna. The children believe anything you tell them.
And as the episode comes to an end, that's the moral lesson that it leaves you with. Lie to children. It's surprisingly easy. Now we'll turn our attention to Selma's Choice, an episode about Marge's titular sister trying to prove that she has what it takes to be a mother, and then learning how horrible that job actually is. At least I think that's the vibe it's going for. Like all good stories, this episode begins with the Simpson family learning that their great-aunt Gladys has died. So the family heads out to attend her funeral. On the way there, though, some people act more appropriately than others.
Ding dong, the witch is dead.
Which old witch?
The wicked witch.
Homer.
And to be honest, it doesn't get much better when it's time for the actual funeral either.
It's a woman? Dear Lord.
But besides that, the family still holds a respectful funeral for their dearly departed great-aunt. Mostly respectful, kind-of-ish.
Don't worry about it.
Then comes the will reading, where we see a tape of Gladys as she lists off things she'll leave to her relatives after she's gone, like her collection of celebrity-shaped potato chips, which Homer obviously eats, and her pet iguana Jub Jub.
Why didn't you just leave me the bowel obstruction that killed her?
As for Patty and Selma, she leaves them 2 things: her old grandfather clock and these parting words: "Don't die lonely like me. Have a family, and do it now."
Now! 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 Hey, the grandfather clock, not bad.
After the funeral, Patty is indifferent to Gladys's words of warning, but Selma takes it to heart and says that she wants to have a baby before it's too late. Unfortunately for Selma, finding a man these days is never easy, not even with the help of love potions, or the modern-day wonder of VHS video dating.
Ugh.
Selma tries flirting with a couple of guys around town. She even tries going on a date with Mole Man, which ends when she realizes that, well, it's Mole Man.
Get out of my car.
This isn't my house.
He just can't ever catch a break, can he? Eventually, Selma even considers trying out artificial insemination to skip out on all the hassle of finding a man and to get straight to having a baby. Selma wants a kid so badly that she doesn't even notice all the warning signs down at the donation clinic.
What a beautiful little girl!
Later on, both Marge and Patty ask Selma if she's really sure about this whole idea, as having a kid can be a lot of work. But Selma has made up her mind, but her desperation to have a family leaves both of her sisters worried. Luckily for Selma, an opportunity to prove herself as a mom was about to arrive, because Bart and Lisa have endlessly been asking to go to the Duff Gardens amusement park. But when the day finally arrives, they wake up to find Homer sick with food poisoning, which he got because he wouldn't stop eating a few-week-old party sub from work. Marge says he should stay home, but he won't listen.
I don't care. I'm going to Duff Gardens.
But try as he might, Homer is too sick to go, so he and Marge end up staying home, while Selma steps in to take the kids to the amusement park in their place.
To get to Duff Gardens, I'd ride with Satan himself.
That's the spirit.
Why would a kid want to go to a beer-themed amusement park anyway? You know what, never mind. Eventually, the 3 of them make it to Duff Gardens, where they can enjoy plenty of Duff-themed amusements, like 7 Duffs, who share no relation to the 7 Dwarves.
Take a picture, it'll last longer. Get out of here.
And like any good amusement park, you can also buy tacky, overpriced souvenirs, like the beer goggles that let you see the world as a drunk would.
You're charming the pants off of me.
What did you say, Aunt Selma?
I said take off those damn glasses.
And there's also the most memorable thing in every amusement park, the part where you wait in line for hours on end to get on a ride that the kids don't even like anyway.
I want to get off.
You can't get off. We have 5 more continents to visit.
Kids, don't you just hate them? During one ride, Bart convinces Lisa to drink the water they're riding in with a series of annoying chicken noises. The only problem is, that wasn't water. So Lisa starts seeing things.
What's wrong? You just put your head right here.
You know what? I'm starting to think there's a reason they don't let kids drink this stuff. Just when Selma thinks it's bad enough, Bart and Lisa both run off and get into trouble. Bart nearly gets flung from a roller coaster because he wasn't really tall enough to ride it, and Lisa somehow ended up swimming naked in the fermentarium, whatever that is.
I am the Lizard Queen!
Eventually, the 3 of them get home, and Selma reveals to Homer that parenting is way, way harder than she thought. At first, she's upset that she might not be able to cut it as a mother. Fortunately for her, Patty helps her sister feel better by giving Selma Jub Jub, Great Aunt Gladys's pet iguana from before. Turns out their mom wasn't a fan. Who would have thought?
You make me feel like a natural woman.
Turns out that iguanas are way more manageable than children, and a lot less mouthy too. And with that story all nicely wrapped up, we'll move on to the last episode in today's video, Much Apu About Nothing, an episode where Apu is threatened to be deported out of the country. It's as normal a day in Springfield as it ever was, when a bear randomly ends up wandering down the street of Evergreen Terrace. And it causes havoc by peacefully scratching itself on mailboxes and generally minding its own business. And of course, everyone on the street starts freaking out, especially Homer when he realizes there's no beer in the house, forcing him to bravely head outside to get beer.
Now to drop gracefully through the windshield.
Luckily, the police come to tranquilize the bear, and also Barney, before it can do any harm. But even still, Homer ends up inciting a mob that storms City Hall so they can talk to the mayor about all of these bear attacks.
Does it have an appointment?
Yes it does.
I phoned ahead.
Note, this is the first time a bear has been seen in the city in the past 30 years, but that's not important. And so, with very little effort on their part, Mayor Quimby creates the Bear Patrol, where dozens of vans and helicopters are constantly patrolling the town for, well, bears. But with the Bear Patrol comes a brand new problem, the Bear Patrol tax, which sucks away a whopping $5 from Homer's paycheck.
It's the biggest tax increase in history!
Actually, Dad, it's the smallest tax increase in history.
Outraged, yet another mob forms outside Mayor Quimby's office in protest of the increased tax prices. But since the mob refuses to either give up the Bear Patrol or pay the taxes for it, Quimby is forced to find an all-new scapegoat to help him weasel his way out of this. Naturally, I'm talking about illegal immigrants.
That's right, illegal immigrants. We need to get rid of them!
Quimby announces that next week the town will vote on whether or not to deport all illegal immigrants from the town. This creates some strong opinions to form across Springfield, and only a little bit of what might count as straight-up racism. Homer, being an idiot, is strongly in support of this bill because it'll make things easier for hard-working All-Americans like himself and Apu. I mean, who else would he be thinking of?
It may astonish you to learn that I am an immigrant.
You? I don't believe it.
In truth, Apu is an illegal immigrant as well, and he expresses a deep worry that he won't get to stay in America and see and do everything he wanted to do. And in turn, Homer realizes that he's been swept up in the mania of this whole situation, that he never stopped to think about how it could affect someone he cares for. And then, like usual, he still drops the ball anyway.
You know what, Apu? I am really gonna miss you.
So close, Homer. So close. When Marge later comes to the Quickie Mart with the kids, Apu shares the story of how he came to America for school. And he only stayed in America illegally to pay off his student loans, because he's a good guy like that. But when he was all set to leave, Apu had made so many friends in Springfield that he simply just didn't want to leave.
What you're saying is so understandable. And really, your only crime was violating U.S. law.
Even when Marge says she'll be voting no on the bill, Apu is still worried about getting deported, so he decides to buy some fake ID papers from the mob that say he was born in America. Now all that's left is for him to act American, but you know it's going badly when not even Homer is falling for it.
The Nye Mets are my favorite squadron.
Who would have thought that it takes more than an accent and liking baseball to be an American? But before long, Apu's facade cracks, and he runs into the back room, crying over how he's shamefully tried to hide who he really is.
I have brought shame to my parents, to my homeland, and to myself.
Don't forget Ganesha.
Apu says he only tried to hide his roots because of how much he loves America, and the freedom it gives him to speak, think, and overcharge on grocery items however he wants. Seeing all of this, Homer is finally convinced to vote no on the new bill, meaning that the entire Simpson family is now standing with Apu. Not that it really means much.
That's nice, although 3 of you are below voting age.
And I'm not registered.
Apu still thinks it's hopeless, considering how much support the bill has, but luckily for him, Lisa realizes that since Apu has been here for so long, he's qualified to take the American citizenship test. And luckily for Apu, Homer says he'll help him pass the test before the vote passes in a few days.
I'll be your tutor.
Did I say he was lucky? What I meant was Ganesha help him. Homer does try his best to help, but it seems it's not needed, as Apu knows quite a bit about American history already. But that doesn't stop Homer from working Apu deep into the night, causing him to pass out at the kitchen table. Which is a good thing, actually.
I have forgotten everything that Mr. Homer taught me.
Perfect, let's roll.
So, along with a handful of other immigrants, Apu gets past a crowd of protesters and goes to take the citizenship test. And so, again, thanks to Apu's surprisingly deep knowledge of American history, he passes the citizenship test with flying colors and becomes an American citizen.
Now which way to the welfare office?
What?
I'm kidding, I work.
The Simpson family then throws a party for Apu to celebrate his newly acquired American citizenship, where Homer gives a toast to his friend.
If I could just say a few words, I'd be a better public speaker.
And so, even with the bill still passing, by a whopping 95% at that, things still have a happy ending for Apu, and for everyone else that the Simpson family cares about.
Ingrates.
And things will stay nice and happy for Apu forever. At least until a documentary giving a poorly made argument guilt trips the show writers into silently shelving his character. Anyway, that's the end of this video. If you liked it, like and subscribe to the channel for more from me.